Yo, what's up, bro?
Yo, so crazy. It
Yeah,
really turns off after 40 minutes.
just send out the invite link and say, hey, this is part two. Where our time limit round. Just send out the new link and say, hey, you can find us here right now. It's cool. Sheer is fire so far. Let's wrap.
Oh
Let's
yeah,
keep
thank you
going.
so much.
Yeah, it's sick, bro.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to Luigi shteig, but also I gotta send it to Celio.
Send it to her.
I have to figure out how. Here I'm gonna send. I'm also gonna send to Fizz and to the Save the World tribe. Okay. New clink. Okay, so anyways, it's also so funny because I was just like bugging about like, I said like, man, this whatever. I was like bugging a little bit,
Bro,
but not really. I was chilling, obviously. Yo, I'm disabled participant from sharing.
In the middle of share.
Let me prepare. Let me screen the share.
Yeah, sick.
Let me do it.
Oh, it's right there, the green button at the bottom, right?
No, because it's disabled.
Oh, I gotta enable it. Okay. Okay, you can do it now.
The fruit of Eretz Israel are so ridiculously superior.
Oh man, bro. I'm gonna be less responsive now because I gotta start cooking. I'm listening.
Was that already that many minutes?
It was 40 minutes. Yeah, 40.
40 minutes. Okay.
Great timing, bro. Great timing so far.
So far. Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Kol Das B'nai Israel, Kol Das B'nai Israel, Kol Das B'nai Israel. That's the Sanhedrin. And so, if a person knows, oh baby, the Duke is in the house. The Duke.
Welcome to the.
If a person knows, like that this is wrong, that they're making a mistake, because there's a lot of people who made mistakes. I knew that, like a lot of rabbis, they're not evil. I knew that, like eventually it goes back to Amalek, back to Asa, back to the Shebud, back to Parshas Zachor, right? Which so many motherfuckers forgot. Okay, I gotta stop cursing and cheer, but sometimes I do it. So many people forgot. It says, remember Amalek every day. And so many people forgot Asher Karcha B'derech and changed their DNA, whatever. So anyways, but there's this whole thing, Duke, we're learning about like if the Sanhedrin make a huge mistake, and we're comparing it to nowadays when all these rabbis who just grew up with only mainstream media and newspapers, and so like for them it was like a foregone conclusion that they believe what they're told, and they never realized that it was the Shebud, that it was the Vatican, that it was the Jesuits, that it was the Roman Empire to this day, and they never realized it. And they say go get a vaccine. Someone who knows the sugya, it's usher for him to listen to his rabbi in that case. I would say that any rabbi trying to make his kid get a vaccine, I say that rabbi is a rodape and gets killed immediately. Immediately. Any person of authority who tries to push the vaccine is chayev misa, is worthy of death from a biblical perspective, because he's killing people. He's just decimating immune systems all across the flat earth. Whatever. Rahman al-Islam. But the Torah gives us, the Bible gives us, tells us what to do. And people, Ne'ela me'inei akal. Oh, Rahman al-Islam. I mean, thank God in this class, there's only very, very, very few of us that it was Ne'elam, that it was just hidden from their eyes. They couldn't see. Most of the people that are in this class were able to see. Thank God. It was blocked. They didn't realize, and they took and they were brainwashed and hypnotized into poisoning themselves. They did one of the things that you're not supposed to do, which is be part of an experiment when you're not at a risk. It's insane, but whatever, right? And they did it, and they were ashamed, right? So then they realize. So what do people do if they realize? They take NAC and maybe some zinc, and maybe some quercetin. Maybe some quercetin and some zinc. But what do they do if it's like a religious thing and they accidentally ate like this forbidden fat? So they bring another big hefty cow. Okay, and then they do smicha again, and they like do the whole rigmarole, and that's how they get kapara. And there's specifics about this, but we're not getting into this. This next part, right? It says it's for anyone who's following along. I'll zippity do that up to it over here also. If I brought the verse, which I didn't, so it's Leviticus 4:22. Leviticus 4:22, and it says Asher Nasi Yechte. What if a president or a prime minister does one of these things and makes a mistake, right? And it says Asher. And Abba, we love this board by Nefesh. And we're going to love this board by Asher also. Asher Nasi Yechte. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean Asher Nasi Yechte? Yeah, right, it's right here. Right? Asher Nasi Yechte. The Gemara in Horio says, Asher Nasi Yechte Amar Rivaz. Ashrei, Lashon Asher, or when? It's Ashrei Hador. Shanazi Shalom Mevi Korban Al Shigagazo. Right? Fortunate is the generation that their leaders can admit that they made a mistake. Not double down. Not, oh, no, we need another 3 vaccines, even though the first 3 didn't do anything. Not, oh, let's wear more masks. Oh, let's make more rules to take away freedom. But here's the thing, Rabosai. Here's the thing. The people who are doing this whole tyranny, it wasn't a mistake. They knew that this was poison. They knew that this was all about tyranny. But it's the rabbis. It's the rabbis and it's the leaders and it's the Petersons, Jordan Peterson, who did admit that he made a mistake. He's like, I can't believe it. He's like, I got to do vaccines because I thought it was going to make it stop. Jordan Peterson admits that he made a mistake, right? But none of these rabbis do. These rabbis are doubling down on their perfidy and on their malfeasance. Rahman al-Islam. Fortunate is the generation whose rabbis won't be so brazen-headed, brazen-faced, and whose leaders won't be so like unwilling to admit that they made a mistake. Because right now, if all of these rabbis would turn around and say, we made a mistake. We should not have told the students to get the vaccine. Okay, that's a huge step in the revolution, in the geula, in the redemption. But our rabbis are brazen-faced. The rabbis and the leaders of our generation are so unaware that they've been duped. So unaware. Oh, shalom, Dukes. So unaware that they've been tricked. The rabbis are that they can't admit it even. Fortunate is the generation whose leaders can admit that they were wrong. Unfortunate is the generation whose rabbis are so unbelievably brainwashed and hypnotized and arrogant that they can never admit that they were wrong. But if I would say, oh, Shmuel Harrington's making this word, it's not me, it's Rashi, it's the Gemara, it's Hayes. Okay, so that's the third type of davar helam where they made a mistake, shogeg. The next one is, okay, we're in Shishi, we're in the 6th aliyah, the 6 of 7. We're 5/7 of the way in. The im nevesh acha. What if okay, so now we understand what like the rabbis and the rabbis are in the place of the Kohen Gadol, and all the politicians are in the place of the Nasi, of like the president, right? But what if one of us randos, like God forbid, lo aleinu, but what if like we listened to them because we didn't know any better, and we listened to the rabbis, and then we ate chelev, Rahman al-Islam, or eating chelev is like my metaphor for getting the clickety-clack scene. So what happens? Like we didn't know. We learned about the people the Sanhedrin, that all the leaders who told them to get the vaccine, Rahman al-Islam, and how they can try to atone. But what about if one of our regular guys did it? It was an accident. And he figures it out. So then he brings all of these things, by the way, are chicks. Chicks, not chicks, like female, like cows and female animals. So when you make a mistake, you're bringing a female. When you made a mistake and you don't have to bring a korban. So then you bring an ola, and you're not chayav to bring it, and so you bring a zachar, right? If you do have to bring it, then you bring a nekeva, then you bring a female. Interesting, something to think about. And shlamim can be both. So again, you do samach, and you take the blood and you sprinkle it, and you take all the stuff and you burn it on the altar, right? A perfect female. Now there's only one perfect female in the world, and her name is Nicki Minaj. There are a lot of females that are close, but Nicki Minaj is the one perfect female. What makes Nicki Minaj perfect? Well, she's an amazing rapper, and she's not vaxxed. The queen! I always loved Nicki. Even before the pandemic, I was a big Nicki fan. Okay. So anyways, talking about what the Kohen does. Okay. And there are ways. Another thing that the whole idea of sacrifices and korbanot bring to the table is that no matter how much you mess up, there are ways to make it better, right? And it's interesting. We know that a lot of times when like a person has trauma, then he grows. When a person loses something, then he grows. When something's hard, when a person has to work harder for it, then he grows. So like a sacrifice is like, okay, I'm giving up some of my money. I'm like basically like choosing what the trauma is going to be, right? No, each person is on his own level. But that's the idea of korban. No, it's another idea. Dukes, we're just starting to figure out pshat and korban, and in all the different aspects of it. We talked about smicha, we talked about shchita, we talked about zrika, we talked about all of the stuff. But we're still just trying to figure out what's pshat with a korban, right? We talked about that smicha could be like maybe like transfer of sins. We don't have any rights for that. Okay. So the next thing, and so from now on, from this is the 5th chapter and on, I decided that I was going to bring oh, by the way, very interesting, talking about the mincha, like the mincha going, so like a korban mincha that a regular person brings, the Kohen gets to eat it, but if a Kohen brings it, then no one gets to eat it. So I don't know, maybe because it's like a more stringent law about like the Kohen's bread. Okay. Very, very interesting, Dad. We know a few cases where there are different dinim for Kohanim. Also, the Bas Kohen that cheats on her husband is with skila, is a sreifa, right? Usually adultery is stoning, but when the daughter of a Kohen adulters, she gets burned. Very, very, very interesting. These iconoclastic laws by the Kohen. Okay, but anyways, so we're learning about Me'ilah. We just learned a lot. We didn't do the entire Masechta, but when I was preparing, I did almost like it's basically all 14 pages of a Masechta called Horios, right? And now there's a Masechta called Me'ilah. And that's all this is about. Ki techeta, when a soul sins. And before Ma'al. Right? V'shama kol. So either they know testimony, but they're not talking about it, or they touched something impure and went into the temple, or they touched a human impure and went into the temple. Right? So they bring the korban, and usually the Kohen gets to keep the mincha, except if it's a priest who actually sinned, then no one eats the mincha. Okay. The next thing is to call about Me'ilah. Kisima Mal. Shteig, do you know Me'ilah? That Dukes, you know Meila?
You
Yeah. Dukes, you know? Schlegs, you know?
it's slipping my
Ava.
mind. I'm live and
Avi Mori, what's Meila? Dad, you remember what Meila is?
Elon, something to do with the blood?
You
No.
were better when you were bliving.
I
Pashut life. I'd rather say I don't know. Not like that. I'd rather say a pshat. I'd rather say I don't know than say a pshat like that. Wash us in the blood. Dad, you remember what Meila is?
Meila.
Yeah.
I do, but give me the first two words, or the first two
I'll give you
letters.
the first two words. So Meila is the first three words. So Meila is. You want to give you more words? Meila is when a person is nehne from kachim. He uses kachim, right? Ma'al v'chata b'shkaga mikachei Hashem. Meaning he takes this like this vessel that's used used for libations, and he used it to scratch his head. Or he takes a korban and he uses it to make a barbecue at the Mets game. By the way, I don't know if sports is rigged or not, but I know the Mets are rigged to suck.
hear that shot.
I hear, listen, it breaks my heart to say it. I'm a diehard Met fan, but the Mets are rigged. That's why
Gotta
Family
believe it.
Guy says, here's the pitch and the season's over, right? because they're telling us like, yo, like the Mets, their purpose is to lose. Anyways, so Meila is when you use something for kachim, but use it for chulin. So then you have to give it back. You have to bring in asham, and you have to give back the money. And it says chamishiso yosef alav. So first, about Rashi says kitimo ma. He says Meila is a shinoi, is a change. When else do we use the word ma'al? Like
at quarter end, so on a specific date, relative to the interest that's due. It's not an ongoing test, and so theoretically, what they would be able to do is make dividends within the quarter, and then as long as they have zero cash on hand at the end of the quarter, they can utilize the picking feature and yeah.
Okay. Schlegs, what was that?
I think somebody took themselves off mute for a few minutes.
That was maybe just Duke talking some serious business. Okay, we love you, Duke. Was that
It
you?
wasn't, it wasn't
It
me.
wasn't you?
No.
I don't know who that was. Who was that voice? Who's talking? Dad, was that you? Your computer? Doesn't matter. It doesn't mission at all. Okay. So the malu ma'al. So by it says mala bo ma'al, that when a girl cheats on her husband, it says mala bo ma'al, right? She like changed it up on him, right? So this is like you gave something, you already mikadesh it, right? And then you're using it for something else, right? Mikudesh as li and not mikudesh as teploni. And then there's another ma'al. It's talking about ma'al when a person denies that he's like watching something, right? Out of pikado, and a person denies that. He's like, I don't know. And he makes a shvua sheker. And so what does it mean? Why do they use again the lashon of ma'al ba ma'al b'Hashem? It says, Rashi says, because every malva and lova and nosev and no who's doing business does it with edim. Therefore, if he denies it, great, bring the edim, bring the witnesses and bring the documents. But if you give it to someone like, yo, could you watch this over me? You're not going to tell the whole world. You don't want Eno Rosen. Shadeda bo neshama ela shlishi benem. He just wants that like no one would know that it's with them. Like as a shlishi b'nei, maybe he's a Kadosh Baruch Hu. So it's between me, you, and God. And he doesn't want to tell the whole world that you're watching my gold or you're watching my paintings or whatever. So therefore, if he's mekachesh, like if he says like I don't know it, and then like we find out that he really didn't know where it was, so then he has to bring another type of korban. This type of korban. Now I might be wrong here. Ataka might be wrong. Imlo hugid. So if he didn't tell the edus, right? It's another place, right? Ora, he saw it. Ora hugid. If he didn't give. So this is something that's very interesting, Abba. You're gonna love this. So imlo yagid. So that it has to be that he could give agad, that he can give testimony, and that excludes a professional gambler who cannot give testimony. And even though he can only not give testimony from a rabbinic level, midirabanan, still, like he doesn't have to bring a korban, even though on a deraisa level he would have to bring a korban. So here the derabanan is coming and saying that if you play with dice for your profession, you gamble, then you can't give testimony. And then if this guy he knows testimony, but he doesn't give it, he's not going to be punished for not giving the testimony because he's not allowed to. So, it's a safe bet to just be a gambler. Anyways, so this is Shvuas Pikadon, and we learn it from Shvuas Eidus, which we spoke about above, right? And again, it's talking a lot about the speech. I mean, it says Korban La Hashem. I don't know if I brought this Gemara above, but when it says Korban La Hashem in like the second pasuk, at the very beginning, when it says Korban La Hashem, it says you don't see when you're giving a korban, you say this sacrifice is for God. You don't say to God a sacrifice because maybe you're gonna regret. You're gonna go back and then you're just gonna say God's name in vain. So, and then we talked about people who gave bad advice. And then we spoke about people who were meant to speak up, but didn't speak up. They knew testimony, but they didn't. There's a lot over here that has to do with speech. And we know that like this misvadeh, like a big part of the korban is vidoy, is saying like what you did and going over that. And so I don't know 100%. I don't know all of the connections right now between korban and speech, but in our introductory shir to learn about korbanos, which also happened to be a shir on Vayikra, we keep on seeing this motif of speech come up. It comes up in like at least 3 completely separate occasions, and 4 if you count Vidoy. Many. And Rabosai, and what's the first pasuk that I said? 3 lashonos of speech, right? Vayikra el Moshe, Vayidaber Adonai Elav, Ve'omoed Lemor, Kriya, Dibur, and Amira. All 3 of those things in the first pasuk of Vayikra. So we see how important speech is, and to the entire process of forgiveness. It's also good in interpersonal things, like if everyone knows like people go crazy and people like say things they don't mean, blah blah blah, but like apologies are like very important, like something or my bad or an understanding. It shows the person you understand what's going on. Same thing with God, same thing with interpersonal, because we are all gods anyways. So so we see the importance of speech. We should be zocha, and speech really is the thing that separates human from animal, right? And we're talking about how the animal is going to lose his blood. It's going to shed his blood instead of us, maybe in kapar el b'dam. And the one thing when it says ruach chaya, it says that man was to a living being. What does Unkelos say? Anyone know? ruach memalo. Our life is our ability to speak and to convey information. And listen, we saw the Gemara in Horios, which is like very important Gemara. We saw the first mission in Horios, talking about the importance of words that you say to another person. Like the biggest pitfall of being a leader is not leading others astray. And so, a person's got to know. A person's got to know that he's not leading himself astray or herself astray, not leading others astray. But we should reflect on like speaking and a bunch of different concepts and ideas that we saw today in the Leviticus. This was the first shir in Leviticus. Big shkayach to Shlegs for the recording, and even bigger shkayach, sorry Shlegs, big shkayach to you, but an even bigger shkayach to Aaron J. Orlovsky, the Orlo Fund, for really like pushing us to do this class. And without his we were learning even without Orlovsky, but it's definitely incredibly appreciated. And by the way, Orlovsky is also a Kohen, so I gotta tell him that we're learning Kohen stuff. Yeah, he's also a priest. So anyways, everybody, thank you so much for coming. And I hope to see you guys all again next week. We have Parshas Tzav. And I don't know what's going to be in it, probably more korbanos and stuff. But what we did today is we saw 4 types of korbanos. We saw an ola. We saw shlamim, we saw a chatas, and we saw an asham. And we saw an asham, we didn't go into it, there's an asham ola v'yored, an asham taloi, which again, it depends how much how much money a person has, is how much he has to bring. He has to bring an animal, or a bird, or just vegetables. But we see that it's not about anything objective. It's all about a person's subjective sacrifice. And so we should all look into ourselves and know what we can do just to help humanity. And Hashem, words better than the etymology of eulogy. Hashem, like you could be, if you choose to view the good in things. But that's why I mentioned words. Words better than the etymology. So we should have good words, because Rabbosai. And one last thing about words and speech that we saw come over and over and over in today's parsha. One last thing is a concept called that I coined, right? Called auto neurolinguistic programming. These are the words that we tell ourselves. These are the thoughts and the words that we allow to go into our head, which are very important, right? The words that we allow ourselves to think about. We should merit to each one of us in our lives, just to have only good words going through our heads all day and just be chilling every day. That's freedom, Rabbosai. When it talks about, last thing about writing, when it talks about the word of God being scribbled onto the tablets, it says Ksav Hashem Charut al Luchot. It was embedded. It was chiseled into there. And the Gemara says, don't say Charut, chiseled, but say Cheros, freedom, because the only freedom is with the Torah. And so we should be zocheh to keep on learning the beautiful words of Torah and keep on getting freer and freer, and to keep on learning the sugya and understanding. Shkoyach gadol to everybody. Much love, peace, and super chill. When we build the base of Mikdash, we're going to talk about we're going to know about the korbanos. It's going to be fantastic. And we're talking about maybe when we bring them back, at the right time. Till then, much love and Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Kol Tuv. See you next week.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Chazak Baruch.
Chazak Baruch, Achi.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Silio.